Good evening, friends. I would like, if I may, to take you on a very strange journey. A journey about a faraway land and a collection of odd and somewhat violent characters on an epic quest to who knows where. This is HP Gaming GameLINK, and today we're doing something a little bit different, offering up a review of a wonderful new podcast, Theatre of the Mind Flayer. Hey folks, welcome back to another HP Gaming GameLINK video. For those of you who don't know me, and you should by now, my name is Matt and we are here to talk about all things Dungeons & Dragons once again, because it is fast becoming our favourite pastime here in this household and across the board, as well as the interwebs too. Today I'm doing something a little bit different for you. I am reviewing a D&D podcast. Now the reason this has come about is partly because I have a connection to the podcast. I will preface that right up front. A good friend of mine, a good friend of the channel, a good friend of the show is taking part in this podcast. However, that aside, I will say that having this on in the background while I'm getting work done with my other life keeps me in touch with Dungeons & Dragons, but at the same time allows me to laugh along because this podcast is actually designed to be a bit of a laugh, a bit of comedy, and a whole lot of fun. I talked about it, I mentioned it, I dropped the name in the intro. I am talking about Theatre of the Mind Flayer. Now this is a D&D 5th edition rules podcast that is set in the homebrewed world of Jekyll and is so far up to episode 10. They are also including one-shots in their content as well. It is... Basically, these guys are a bunch of actors, voice actors, doing all sorts of crazy stuff. They got together and decided to start up a bit of a podcast to see how they would go. I can tell you right now, the antics of these characters in this world of Jekyll and the surrounds of the different places that they go and visit are quite the riot. There is I will also say it is incredibly explicit. So if you do not like bad language, maybe this is not for you. However, if you're a fan of D&D, if you are a fan of shows like Critical Role, things like that, then this is going to be something you are going to enjoy. And because it is literally just auditory, you're able to go about your day and do other things while the episodes are in play. So, to give you a brief overview, there is also two DMs for this podcast, Caleb Dowdall and Jacob Machin, who those of you who have watched the channel before will know that Jake and I have done a couple of live shows. We've done a couple of live instas as well. And they basically control the game as a normal DM would. Caleb seems to be rules cop, and Jake does a lot of the NPC work and things like that, although they do confer from time to time. And when they do that and they try and metagame each other, that is quite hilarious to listen to as well. One thing I will say too, at the start of every episode, there's a bit of real world drama, theatre sports games, improv games, just as a bit of a tease, a bit of a warm up before the episode session gets underway proper. And it's worth listening to all of those as well, because they are quite hilarious, where Jake and Caleb put everyone on the spot. That's improvisation, that's improv for you, which is what D&D at its core is pretty much all about. I will say too, the cast they've assembled for this motley crew are fantastic. The vocal performances and the dedication to their characters is really top notch as well. Luke, Danielle, Hercules, and Daelyn basically put together such dedication to their characters and their performances. And yes, there's a bit of back and forth between them all, but at the same time, that banter is what makes the campaign that much more fun. I will say, and yes, okay, I'm a little bit biased because obviously he's a good mate of mine and obviously we've known each other for a very long time. Jacob's characterizations as an NPC are so on point, it's just not funny. The man is just too talented for his own good. So it makes me want to up my own NPC game when I'm doing my own campaigns, because his characterizations, his dedication to the characters is, to be honest, and I'm not just saying this to toot his horn and all the rest of it and to get him all excited, but his characterizations are on par with Matt Mercer in some respects. He's that good, and it's definitely worth a listen. The different races that they've encountered, the different characters, the locations, different cliffhanger endings that they have given us have been fantastic. One thing I will say too, if you are going to listen to the podcast, it's worth subscribing to their Instagram page, because there are some things that happen in the campaign that you'll be able to check up on and post photos on Instagram. In particular, one particular episode where there was some epic combat. Basically, the entire episode was literally one long battle, and it was fantastic. Where they couldn't find a miniature to describe to the players, to the PCs, what it was they're actually fighting. So they actually placed a Mr. Potato Head, which is obviously the scale they were going for, versus little minis, with nothing but eyes all over it. And the reaction from the cast when that's placed out is truly terrifying. It was very exciting to see that. A lot of jokes. There is a lot of tongue squarely and firmly in cheek with this as well. But I will say, it has been a wonderful joy to listen to the developing story, the characters, things like that as well. Everything you love about D&D is in this podcast. I kid you not. It is definitely worth checking out. You can find them on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and about 100 others, Google Podcasts as well, I think, too. So it's definitely worth having a catch up and listen to those sessions. As I said, most of the time the episodes are about an hour and 10 long, so they're not hugely long. First session is only, session 0, I should say, is about 14 minutes. It is a lot of fun. Don't have it too loud. The opening riff, Theatre of the Mind Flayer, can be quite loud with an epic rocking beat in the background, which is fantastic too. But yeah, just don't have it too loud, or you will basically die of shock when that comes through your speakers, especially if you're listening on headphones. I will say too, I'm not sure, I think it's Caleb who does the editing post-production before the episodes go live, but the addition of the choice music tracks, slight sound effects, things like that, just add to it and add to the immersion for the podcast. So if you're, for example, I've done dishes while I've been listening to the podcast, and I've picked up the scrubber brush and I'm like ready to jump in the fray when combat breaks out. As I said, it's not going to be for everybody, but at the same time, if you love things like Critical Role, if you love watching podcasts, if you've enjoyed our HPG D&D lives but want something a bit more adult, this is going to be something you're really going to enjoy, I guarantee it. Have you listened to Theatre of the Mind Flayer? If you've listened to it, by all means, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so pop some comments in the comment section below. I'll get back to you when I get a chance. If you have any thoughts about podcasts in general, by all means, always open to feedback and comments and to hear from you guys, because we value our community so much here at HB Gaming. But yes, if you haven't, I highly recommend it. It is an absolutely fantastic play podcast of D&D. And if you've never played D&D as well, it will give you an idea of just how fanciful and how much fantasy you can actually bring to a game, because there is just literally no limits on what you can and can't do. As I said, 10 episodes currently. There is one-shots now as well, because some of the cast have had to go off and do other things in their day jobs. How dare they? But at least it gives you an idea of where the channel or where the podcast is headed. Bakanov is one of my favorite NPCs, and if you listen to the podcast, you will find out why. Spoiler alert, I hope nothing bad happens to that poor man with his little pinky. I'm worried that he is not long for this world, but you'll have to listen to the podcast to see how that goes. Yes, thank you very much for indulging me in this little bit of a micro review of some D&D content. D&D is one of our passions at the moment, as you can see. We have got some Start Playing content up on startplaying.game, so if you want to jump on board, you can get on there and book me in as a GM, and I'll take you on some fanciful adventures of my own creation. Along with that, we have some more D&D, HPG D&D Live coming at you. Episode 4 of our campaign through the Lost Mine of Phandelver is ramping up. We actually have a crazy bit of business involving a green dragon, which is going to be very exciting, so by all means, stick around for that one every Friday night here in Australia. and we'll see you back for some more crazy gaming content soon. We've got some more unboxings for you. Kickstarters are on their way. Cannot wait to get all the content to you guys as well. So by all means, check out the podcast one last time. Check out Theatre of the Mind Flayer on all of your good podcasting platforms. It is definitely worth a look. And we hope to see you back here for some more epic D&D and board gaming tabletop content very, very soon. Until then, folks, it is bye for now.